Welcome to Your Infinite Health. Are you getting older?
Are you feeling it?
How would you like to do that in reverse?
We're your host,
Dr. Tripp
and Lenae.
We've run an integrative medicine practice for 13 years.
Together, we have 60 years of combined experience helping clients.
We've helped tens of thousands achieve success in health and live longer, happier lives.
In this show, we'll cover peer-reviewed and evidence-based integrative approaches to creating the health you've always wanted.
We also share professional experience we see in the field every day.
So if you're ready to feel, look, and live your best life, you're in the right place.
Welcome to Your Infinite Health podcast.
Hey, Tripp.
Hey, Lenae.
I have a joke.
Oh, no.
It's an October-centric, Halloween-esque joke. So the kids and I don't know. You'd think the kids would like these things, but they don't. It's all me. I bought a deck. I bought a deck of spooky dad jokes, and so when we're in the car and not driving, because I'm a responsible driver, we read them at stoplights. I think they're funny. The kids, I think, they just tolerate me at this juncture. But anyway, what do you call a zombie that doesn't joke around?
I don't know.
Dead serious. Dead serious.
Dead serious.
Ha, 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 ha. Okay, so I promise listeners it's only going to get better from here. So we have a great guest on today. I'm so excited. She is known as the mother of probiotics. It's like I think she said she invented the word probiotics, but I'm going to read a little bit about her and then we're going to bring her on. It's going to be amazing. And so I don't butcher her name, Tripp. I'm going to make you say her name. Her name is Natasha
Trenev.
And she graduated from UCLA and co-founded Natrin Natrin Inc. in 1982 with the goal of developing the first revolutionary method of producing an effective and scientifically validated single-strain bacteria product. Her efforts led to the establishment of the entire probiotics category in North America, Australia, England, Holland, and Belgium. She is also the founder and chairwoman of the Global Institute of Probiotics, dedicated to the technological advancement of probiotic usage. For more than 40 years, Ms.
Trenev
who is known as the Mother of Probiotics, has been leading the scientific community in the acquisition of knowledge about probiotics. She authored the probiotic standards adopted by the National Nutrition Foods Association, now known as National Product Association, which were later read into the Congressional Record. A member of the American Society of Microbiology, American Association for the Advancement of Science, Institute of Food Technologists, Anaerobe Society of the Americas, and the American Dairy Science Association, Ms.
Trenev
is recognized as an educator, research scientist, author, and television and radio personality, as well as an authority on probiotics. Join me, listener and Tripp, as we meet Ms.
Trenev.
Thank you so much for tuning in. And we have Ms. Natasha Trenev. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I always like talking about my history in this industry and informing people.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to delve into it. Can you give us a little bit of a background on how you ended up being the mother? Is it the mother of probiotics?
Yes. I've been in this industry for 56 years, and my family introduced liquid acidophilus and natural style Bulgarian yogurt in the 60s while I was still a student at UCLA. And I set the standard for yogurt in California, the kefir standard in New York in about 1970s. And then I set out introducing the whole concept of probiotics in the early 1980s. Nobody knew what I was talking about for almost 20 years, but I spent my life going around the world lecturing at the University of Guadalajara, to their medical school, to a number of hospitals and universities here in the States, in Canada, in Australia, in Singapore,
Wow.
in Europe. So I've done the global teach on probiotics. And the reason they call me the mother of probiotics, because in Australia, I was the first one to introduce the word and the concept. So they said, well, if we're going to come to you because you've been in this field the longest and you've specialized. I don't, make anything else. And I had to go into production because no one was willing to do the hard work that it takes to make these products, because bacteria are intelligent and they need to be prompted to behave a certain way to benefit us. And I've spent my life studying the gut, its function on human health, and how we can improve human health with the use of these probiotics.
So you were the first probiotic company on the market and introduced the term. Nowadays, it seems like Whole Foods has like 2 aisles full of supplements for probiotics. What's the difference? Like, what separates one from another?
Well, first of all, it's just simply following a labeling standard. My labeling standard was voted on by the entire health food industry in 1989 and accepted. And my probiotic labeling standard was later read into congressional record in 1995. Simply states that each organism listed on the label, you have to have a potency for each organism. Otherwise, the label is inaccurate. So if you look at all the other products, it doesn't give you the exact potency of each organism. It now guarantees a total potency, but you don't know what the potency is of. And so that they clearly need to establish whether or not their product needs refrigeration and why. So having grown up in this industry, I certainly know how to make something called a shelf-stable probiotic, but I wouldn't do that because shelf stability implies that the product is only exposed to temperature, what we call in a laboratory setting, which is around 72 degrees Fahrenheit. And since I'm a pioneer in perishable shipping as well, because I had to ship yogurt and kefir across the country in the early 1970s, I know that exposure to higher temperatures by these bacteria causes death and instability. So you have to be able to prove that your organism is not damaged by handling. So just to give you one example, if the outside temperature in a UPS truck is 80 degrees, so inside the UPS truck will be 120 to 140. No one has shown data that the products can survive this kind of temperature or mishandling. Most importantly, the consumer is ignorant. So when they see a shelf-stable sticker, they will put the product in a hot trunk. They will put it in a windowsill. And I have personally heard these stories, so it's not something I'm just making up. Consumers are totally ignorant about perishable foods or how to handle a living product.
Go ahead.
What about the use of spores?
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that. I've been, as I said, in this field for 56 years, and the spores are soil organism. And spores can determine whether to sporulate or not. In other words, to change into a regular cellular structure. And a lot of them don't choose to sporulate inside the GI tract. They may just pass through with the feces. Number two, since I am familiar with the Bacillus genera, I know that a lot of these spores can produce toxins to clear their territory. And that's one of my concern, because this is not a normal thing to supplement in large quantities, because they are not part of our greater microbiota composition in the 27 feet of GI tract that houses over 100 trillion microbes.
Interesting.
Did you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So,
Well, basically, so you understand, bacteria that are not that have not evolved with human beings, Homo sapiens, may produce toxins in the intestinal tract to dominate their territory.
okay.
The objective of bacteria is to dominate their territory and thrive. So they will do that at the expense of the host if necessary.
Sounds like people. Sounds like people. Um, so you would say there's a correlation between the gut health and chronic disease?
Absolutely.
Did you explain?
Chronic disease is usually caused by a dysfunction of digestion and the ability of the body to replace its cellular structure. So, just to make it plain, your body loses about 10 million cells every minute, and those cells have to be replaced by healthy proteins. If your body's not able to digest food properly, you cannot form healthy proteins, and as a result, eventually it would lead to disease. That's only one thing. Second of all, the aggravation of the immune function on the intestinal wall, where either the immune system is dealing with toxins produced with the microbes in the gut, or the immune system is being, how shall I say, fooled and to attack the cellular structure of the body so that it doesn't find a pathogen. And I'm not going to get too technical because I don't want to lose the people listening. So it's called the diversion, or getting the immune system to attack cellular structure that looks like the pathogen it's trying to eliminate. And the more dysfunction and the more chemicals we have in our food, the tougher it is for the immune system to react to normal food passing the intestinal barrier into the bloodstream to nourish our body.
So I'm curious. In the long run, the viability of the samples that or the products that are out there. I attended a lecture a number of years ago that a physician took a number of patients in his practice and was trying to look at what kind of impact each probiotic, and he did literally hundreds of them. The slide with all the different products was almost uninterpretable, but the end result was that he found that the vast majority of them really did not result in any substantial change in the microbiome at all by their administration.
Are you referring to stool samples or fecal
cultures?
Well, there's a number of things, and I'll keep it simple. I have a whole paper on the inaccuracy of fecal testing. That the fecal testing, feces is about 40% bacteria or microbes, the dry weight fecal matter, I should stress. And so, therefore, there's a number of inaccuracies, since I've also worked on laboratory techniques most of my life to figure out enumeration. It's unlikely that a stool sample will indicate which species is proliferating, because there's also additional fermentation that happens in the colon or large intestine. So you're really trying to test whatever the feces is expelling at that time through the peristalsis of the individual. That's number one. Number two, the reason most probiotics don't survive is because they don't have a carrier. I've developed a oil matrix that is unique, and it's put in a 2-piece hard gel capsule. And I've had a European Institute test the sample, and the probiotics survive in this oil matrix for well over an hour at 1.8 pH. So it's a substantial survival, and also they are biotolerant. So because I specialize in this field, I make sure that whatever probiotic I produce or whatever I sell is surviving and benefiting the human host.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's a big question. I don't know if many of the manufacturers out there have been as thoughtful about the creation of their products as you.
No, most of them don't make their own products. I can tell you, when they tell me they ferment bacteria, it's rocket science. And they don't have a facility. I have a drug CGMP facility in Westlake Village, California. It operates under international drug CGMP guidelines. And every product is tested, every raw material is tested, and all of the things that need to be tested when you're selling a live microorganism to benefit a human host has to be taken into account. So the whole, bottom line, again, I don't want to get too technical, is that the product has to work and be safe each and every time the end user uses it.
So I think that also begs the question. Uh, there's a whole market out there for colon cleanses and things like that. I mean, my question is always the utility of doing those things versus just going ahead and changing the content of the microbial intake to influence the flora that we have in the lower intestine. Do you have a thought on how that might be accomplished with or without colon cleanses?
Yeah, if the body is working sufficiently well, then cleanses are not necessary
That was my
because
thought.
the
Yeah.
large intestine, yeah, is the waste and disposal system of the body. And it should, if bifidobacteria are like number two in the count of the total microbes that compose the large intestine, the evacuation of the feces should be well done and nothing should be staying there. In other words, we also have a transit time. A ideal transit time is less than 24 hours. The best transit time was published in a work in 1984 by the Maasai warriors, who had a phenomenal transit time of 8 hours. So when your body is functioning efficiently, it should be able to digest the food, nourish the whole body, and dispose of the waste properly. But we in the West have processed our foods, have added chemicals, antibiotics in our pesticides. Most pesticides are really very potent antibiotics. So we destroy our composition of microbiota almost on a daily basis. And that's why things start clogging up the large intestine and the colon, and people feel they need to cleanse it.
Mm-hmm.
But here's one danger: when you cleanse the colon, you also disrupt the microbial content. And if you don't have an effective way to restore that optimal balance, you're going to have more problems.
Exactly.
So, I think that the reason we've had 70 years of health food concepts and products, and the fact that we still have 80% of our healthcare dollar being spent on chronic disease, is an indication that we're not doing something right.
Exactly. So we're acting on our genomes in an adversarial way, as opposed to helping it flourish.
That's right. It's what one of the old philosophers said. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing, and that's what I think we have going on now.
Yeah, a little knowledge and not being in allowance that there could be something better, simply because it's
Correct.
profitable.
And I think, right. I think I sat on a standards committee for the National Nutritional Foods Association for about 10 years. And every time we tested every category of dietary supplement off the shelf, we found that about 80% of them did not contain what they listed on their label.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
And
I think New York State did something like that a number of years ago also for.
Yeah, to 2017 to be exact, the Attorney General of New York did a test, and there's more tests that are here. I just don't have time to follow all of them. And as the person who wanted to implement True Label through this organization, because my standards were used to help the passage of a very important amendment called the Deshay Amendment that allowed dietary supplement manufacturers to make structure function claims. And what happened is that the true label was the whole industry or that association was canceled by people canceling their membership because they did not want to submit to logical testing that was not very expensive. It was very fair.
Mhm.
They just didn't want to have their products tested and be confronted.
Well,
Wow.
I applaud that. That's wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore.
Oh.
And that was the biggest tragedy for our industry.
So manufacturers can just plop out products and lie on the label?
Yeah, they can because they're not challenged. They're, who's going to challenge them? The government certainly doesn't have the resources to challenge them. And certainly there's no industry organization that's challenging anybody. So anybody can put whatever they want on the label. And I might add that virtually all of them don't make their products in-house. They may have a filling and labeling operation, but they don't really formulate. The formulation is not just picking ingredients off a list and throwing it together. There's ways that your body can adopt these nutrients that have to be thought about very much so that the product actually works, regardless if it's a probiotic, a multiple B complex product, whatever it is, it has to be well thought out and put in a way that the body can utilize it and help itself with that supplement.
I thought that was the role of the FDA.
Sorry.
Well, you might want to discuss that with them.
No, I'm over regulatory people.
Yeah, the FDA is more concerned about what you say about the product than actually what's in it. As long as nobody's dying, they really don't get involved because their view of dietary supplements, they're a waste of money because obviously they support big pharma.
Right.
70% of pharma's of the FDA's budget is paid by pharma, basically. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So thank you for that. I forgot about that. So that's the problem. So it's really consumer beware. And, I unfortunately say I'm the last of the Mohegans in the health food industry because I've been in this industry 56 years. And everybody says you should be writing a book about all you know about the industry and the associations. And I said, I'll get to it. But in the meantime, I'm more concerned about young people and the fact that young women have so many problems, so many new diseases that people can't even keep up with the names. And that's my concern. It has nothing to do about selling product or making a profit because I'm way beyond that. I'm the author of 3 books. 2 of my books one was published by notable publishers, HarperCollins. My first book with Dr. Leon Chado. My second book was picked up by Penguin Putnam. And my third book I auto-published, but I'm ready to write my 4th book because, the health of the microbiome, especially in this day and age, is probably the most important thing in your plan for a healthy life and a good life.
Yeah, I mean, just the things I see in my clinic, and trying to help optimize people's metabolics and their and hormones and these things. It's amazing that I'll run into the trend towards a younger population having suboptimal physiology and performances. Is amazing. I think we always tend to think that it's going to be the 55 plus year old that has the really the challenging metabolic problems in that, and I all the way from hypogonadism to hypothyroidism. All of those things are in what I see in the clinic, and I certainly have a biased population, but at the same time. Seeing these changes in the progression towards a younger population certainly indicates that what's going in is not serving their genomes well.
Right. And since I've worked with medical doctors Yale University, the head of gastroenterology. I've worked with people at the Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic. I've worked with for 25 years with the head of obstetrics and gynecology here at Cedars-Sinai. I work with a professor and doctor at Stanford. I'm very well familiar with what's going on. And I think what it is now is that we have so much confusing information that young people don't know what to eat, don't know how to stay healthy. And as a consequence, you have an explosion of thyroid problems with young women, SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and just the inability to digest and absorb their food.
Right, and that
So,
affects significantly affects the motility and ultimately the health of the immune system.
Precisely, because 80% of your immune cells are in your lining of your GI tract. And those immune cells literally watch out for your life. And since everybody's under a tremendous amount of stress these days, all of the blood flow goes to your extremities. So when the blood goes to your extremities, your body doesn't have the tools to repair itself or to engage the immune system properly. So this is what we have to address with young people. And I tell young women that, we have processed foods in the health food industry as well. There's no such thing as almond milk or oat milk or coconut milk. I said, pardon me, but those are processed foods. There's no such way that you can squeeze an almond and get milk from it.
No? Wait, what? Kidding.
No. So we have a lot of processed foods in the health food industry. And I said, my study for my entire life was looking at healthy cultures and how they stay healthy. And it's the simplicity of the food. And one of the things that may shock both of you is that I say that table salt has been given a bad rap, that people need salt in their diet, that they have to stop eating processed foods just because they're a health label on them, and they have to cook their foods, because if you're in westernized societies, you don't have the ability to digest all these raw foods that people are eating. And I know that goes against the counterculture, but I'm saying I think I'm right, because if we have 80% of chronic disease and $4.3 trillion are spent on healthcare, we're not doing something right.
Well, I think you're right. People are confused about, nutrition and in general. A lot of that's because marketing is so seductive, these days. And you have like smoothies, even smoothies are, loaded with sugar and touted as healthy. So it's no wonder why people are confused. I've always said it's really easy. If it doesn't die or go bad in 3 or 4 days, it shouldn't go on your body. And chances are high that nothing for you is in the pantry.
No,
and
you're
people
right.
are really not mindful anymore. They're not looking. They're looking for the quick decision. They don't want to think, and they're not being mindful about looking at the actual contents of their food and what could impact those things could have.
If they're lying on the label, it doesn't matter if you're looking at it or not. You're getting lied to.
Right, liar's gonna lie.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm doing these podcasts and I'm doing IG Lives, because I know there's a problem. And believe me, people use all kinds of methods to get to me for help. And I said, look, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a health practitioner, but I've been doing this for 56 years and I've heard and almost seen everything. And I have worked with doctors, very prestigious doctors, to help with their protocols and assist their patients. And what we have is really a health crisis in this country. We can't, there's not enough dollars. I was contacted the other day by another researcher that says that insurance companies are now looking to find viable people who have been in this industry for at least 20 to 30 years and actually know what they're talking about, to help them with the chronicity of disease among the elderly. Insurance companies can't afford to pay for all the medication that's being dispensed to these elderly people. and they're not getting better.
I would be happy to speak with them. I see diabetes and metabolic problems all the time, and as I do our 4-pillar program, what happens is they get rid of the junk. They actually thrive. They correct their physiologies. I get rid of diabetes within 6 months most of the time.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, insurance. I could go
yeah.
off about insurance, but I don't want to do that. What I do want to do is, because you, in the note I got about you, you're talking about gut health as it relates, or probiotics as it relates to like COVID and this alleged thing called long COVID. And so I wanted you to talk a little bit more about that and how that works together.
Okay, well, first of all, I do work with a very prestigious doctor. Her name is Dr. Sabine Hassan, and I'm referring to her work that was denied publication, even though it was first of all accepted. So it's her findings that says that if you have had the vaccine or you have long haul COVID, you've disrupted your bifidobacteria in your large intestine, and that's disrupting your ability to have a normal and healthy immunity. And she's also finding that when you have cancers, the bifidobacteria composition in your large intestine is greatly affected. And she just published something recently. So what I'm saying that short of doing retention enemas or reimplantation, you have to have products where the bifidobacteria survive. They have to survive packaging and handling, shipping gastric juices and bile in order to be able to reach the large intestine and have an effect on your health. And unless you're doing what I'm doing, and that's what I'm doing, it's not, again, to sell my product, it's to educate people and to tell them this is what they need to be looking for and to incentivize other companies to start doing the same thing.
Curious, have you had your product on any clinical trials?
Yes, I've had them on clinical trials. Unfortunately, they're mostly for dermatology because once I've had clinical trials, everything that I've tested them for has been determined to be a disease state. So the new ruling by the FDA, if you have a clinical trial using a dietary supplement on a disease state, if you use that clinical trial to substantiate your claims, your product can be taken off the market and you would be forced to go for an investigative new drug license, which costs millions of dollars, before you could put your product back on the market.
What?
Well, INDs, yeah, an IND is, I think, 200 to 300,000 just to get started.
Yep.
That just
So that's the problem.
that is a problem.
That's the problem. But I do have data showing survival of my 3 strains, as I said, in the oil matrix, in gastric juices at 1.8 pH for well over an hour. And that's significant. And I do get referrals from doctors and clinics all the time with their own protocols for their patients to use our products.
Interesting. So if somebody wanted to learn, well, before I ask that question, what is one thing that you want the listeners to know?
First of all, that you have to, not just in probiotics, but you have to question who really does the formulation for every dietary supplement you take and what's their knowledge base. I can say well over 10,000 articles of research, work with the best hospitals and institutions around the world, including with the head of the World Health Organization for Gastroenterologists, Dr. Julio Bay in Argentina. So who have they worked with? What do they know about formulation? And are they really a specialist in their field? Because unless they're a specialist in their field, you can throw anything together and sell it to people. That's number one. Number two, you should never buy a probiotic that is not refrigerated, that doesn't come in glass, because then they're going to use funny bacteria to survive and they may not benefit you at all. Because it's very easy for me to do that and make more money, but I've chosen not to do that. Number three, stop eating processed foods, even if they're labeled as health foods. Learn how to make your food from scratch. And I would say stop eating raw foods, especially if your stomach and digestive tract is not cooperating. And do incorporate table salt back into your diet because table salt is only 40% sodium. And the reason we have a problem with sodium is because it's used heavily in processed foods. That's my recommendation.
Awesome. Very helpful information. Where can somebody go? Where can our listeners go to find out more about you and your books and your product?
You can go to my website, natrin.com, natren.com. We also have a professional division for physicians, which is called protren.com. Or you can even call us because I still have people working with me who have been with me for 20 or more years. And they said they're not leaving because they love what they do and they love talking to all the customers. And they're not there just to sell you stuff. They're actually really there to help you. So you can call our toll-free number that's on the website. And, let's try to change the health of the people in this country because we cannot continue doing what we're doing because it's just leading us down to a terrible, terrible waste of money, waste of human health, and waste of an ability to enjoy your life.
Well said.
Awesome.
Natasha, thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute joy having you on, and I learned a lot.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's very
Loved
helpful. Listener, I hope you found it educational, informative, and entertaining a little bit. And until next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for subscribing to Your Infinite Health. I'm Dr. Tripp.
And I'm Lenae. Until next time, feel it, look it, and live it.